Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday, July 7th, to everybody listening. Hello, Carla. Hello, Jarmani, and all the people that are going to be trickling in as the show kicks off here. Hopefully, you're having a fantastic start to your morning. I know I absolutely am. Feels like I barely even fell asleep. It's one of those kind of weeks. That's kind of my line that I use these days. Um, who would have guessed that after getting fired, your life becomes infinitely more busy? But sure enough, that's the place that I find myself in as we try and get this new program off of the ground here. Plenty to get into over the course of the next 2 hours. I'm sure you guys can speculate as to the main story that we're going to be jumping into. Hello, Kelly Beans. Hello, Fergs. Yeah, Carla, I knew you were on vacation, and I'm glad you're back. We missed you. Jarmani already saying sad sights on my street this week, and last as they're removing 40-year-old very large trees for upcoming construction. Some are in bad shape and needed to go, but it's interesting. I met some people on the 4th of July who were going through the arbor process as well. And I had a very similar sentiment. What's up, Larry? Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Um, Give people a couple of moments here just to trickle in. And hello to all the people on the Minocqua Brewing Substack as well. Hello, Aaron. I apologize. Where was her shout out? You know what? You kind of snuck in there without me noticing, but lovely to have you here. Thank you for being here. Aaron joined me on Ben After Dark yesterday via TikTok because as per usual, I did not have enough time to actually get around to getting the software all up and running yesterday. We're so close. We're so close. But I think I cranked it for about 15 hours yesterday. And by the time it was done, I hit a wall. Fun fact, I don't know if it's actually going to impact us during this stream or not, but this is the beauty of living in a corporate landlord space. And hello, CKK. Um, at some point, despite the fact that I am not leaving this apartment, I put my last day as August 31st, and they decided, what's up, Adam? What's up, Alex? Um, they decided to send me a text message yesterday evening around 6 p.m. that said, just so you know, this doesn't count as your final move out checkup, but we're going to be swinging by to assess the place and be able to work on marketing and yada, yada, yada. We'll be there sometime between 8 and 4. You don't need to be there, but it's fine if you are. And there's a very good chance that there might just be some dude walking around the apartment looking at shit. And like, just to be clear, like, I'll take the YouTube and Facebook and Substack crowd for a ride here. We got boxes. We got boxes for days as I'm kind of packaging stuff up and getting ready for a move that is going to slowly take place over the course of the next 6 weeks as I get ready for what the future of my career holds here. And let's just say the 12-hour notice that they decided to give me that this was happening was not nearly enough. So they're going to come here in this mess, and if they are intending to take pictures for marketability, they are going to be sadly mistaken. And I have the worst kind of feeling, in the best way that a corporate landlord can behave, that they're going to be bastards about it. But we'll see what happens in the long run. I hope you guys are all here for the ride. And if you are listening to me on the Minocqua Brewing Substack, it is an office hours Tuesday. I wrote my article for the Minocqua Brewing Times, which is available to read right now, and we'll actually be talking about it quite a bit in this first hour. I wrote it before I knew what was going on in Maine, and now it just feels all the more relevant and pertinent now that we kind of know what we know about this Graham Plattner saga there. But so I will be doing an office hours from 1 to 1:30. That is for paid subscribers on Kirk's Minocqua Brewing Substack. So if you guys feel so inclined, feel free to join there. And of course, if you could throw me a subscribe. We passed 600 subscribers. Doesn't work the same way as it did at the station. We passed 600 subscribers on the YouTube page yesterday. No thanks to Aaron's roommates. And now we push on to 1 billion. So anybody who hasn't already liked the YouTube page, just search my name, Ben Cominos. It's all available right there. But the growth has been very quick post firing, and I have to say we're 130 subscribers away from passing a certain radio station that would just give me all the glee in the world if I could get on the other side of that. So we need 130 more subscribers in the immediate future. And then on to 1 billion is the game plan. Um, all right. CKK. All right. We'll get to all of that. John says, which political candidate will you interview next? There's a couple on the radar here. So a little bit in the world of outside the box before we get into the news of the day. So last Thursday, you may have seen me interviewing. I actually had two ladies on. Carrie, who is very knowledgeable about Flock and will be on the program again as we discuss Flock related issues. And then Malia, who does the last 24 hours social media channels, big time following on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the whole deal. She and I went and grabbed coffee yesterday, and she is going to be a regular staple of the show every Thursday from 10 to 11. We're going to be jumping into all of her posts from over the week. We'll have her socials and ways you can follow her and keep up to date with her. But she is a fascinating individual, armed forces experience, working in counter horrorism because TikTok makes you talk like an infant. She brings a ton of experience and a ton of insight into a conversation that I very much enjoy having. We went to get coffee yesterday and we ended up talking for 2 hours. A lot about our allies in the Middle East, a lot about what's going on in the media landscape, a lot of what it's like standing up for what you know is right when so many people are more content to just tuck their tail between their legs and placate a bunch of people that don't like hearing opinions that run counter to what they're used to hearing. Awesome person, and I'm very much looking forward to having her on as a regular. Then, in terms of what I have scheduled so far, we have a member of the Oshkosh Common Council who is proposing, let me get a name here just so I don't misspeak, who is proposing a 1 year moratorium on data centers in the Wisconsin area. Of course, I'm on my alternate account on this thing because I just love this app so much. Alec Lefebvre will be on the program from 9:15 to 9:30 on Friday. I have Mandela Barnes's campaign manager's contact. I should be getting in touch with him later today. And I do have a feeler out for another candidate for sheriff in Winnebago County. I have not heard back yet, but the goal is to get them on the program. I see a couple of people excited that Malia is going to be a regular. Me too. I think she's going to bring a lot to the show. And I did not get a chance to read your letter to the editor yet, John. I quite literally don't stop, but I promise you I will eventually get there. I just don't have the same kind of time that I used to when you're salaried. It's funny. I was talking about that with a friend yesterday. Like, the mindset of being self-employed is totally different, and like I'm a landlord at least for a little while longer, and I've done the self-employed thing. Thank you, gamer, and thank you for being here. But you almost kind of can't shut it off anymore once you turn it on, and it's funny. It gives me some insight into how 1099 MAGA voters feel all the time when I talk about taxes and working hard and welfare queens and blah, blah, blah. Because, like, I do, even in this brief time period, I have grasped exactly what goes in behind the scenes to a business. I'm still more than happy to pay my taxes for the people that are struggling much more than I am right now. Um, but I mean, far be it. I'm just saying that I have had an eye-opening experience. I see I have a new person there asking what my favorite personal comic cover of all time is. That's not something I can shoot from the hip from. I would have to think about that for a while. I'm not really sure, but I appreciate the question nevertheless. I said yesterday, I only hung these yesterday because I was told the white wall was no good. I wanted a Batman thing, but all the Batman options sucked. But this Spider. Well, it's not It's technically Spider Verse, but not the movies one. I love this. This is a banger, even though I'm not a huge Spider-Man guy. But Carla says, I get it, Ben. 10 years as a dance studio owner almost destroyed me. It's exhausting. You know what's funny, Carla, is I always said, like, I had to be thrust into this moment, and now that I'm in it, I'm kind of pot committed mentally. But I always used to say I have no intention of ever starting like Ben Cominos Media. I said I don't care about any of the behind the scenes stuff for doing a show. I just want a microphone in front of my face and the ability to talk. Then when you kind of have it ripped from you for no reason other than MAGA doesn't shut the hell up, you begin to realize exactly how beholden you are to morons' interests. And now there's a good chance that I might not ever, like someone asked, I said, are you mailing demos out? And I said, I probably will at some point. But honestly, I am so pot committed. I have a studio being built in the Fox Valley area. I have sponsors lined up already. I have a couple of things that will give me the peace of mind to really see how far I can take this, at least in the immediate future, seeing as, no family, no need to worry about other mouths to feed or anything like that. So, uh, I'm pretty ecstatic about it, and we'll see where it ends up going. But it doesn't. The train doesn't stop right now, as Ali says. Ben's wheels be going. It doesn't stop, and it's even like trivial stuff. I spent an hour today. I don't know if you've heard, but I'm still shadow banned on TikTok, and so some of my what used to be listeners that I now consider friends have been kind of pushing me towards being more active on socials, not just posting, but interacting with other people's stuff, which I'm going to tell you is a job in and of itself when you're trying to get something like this off the ground. So, a lot of machinations going on behind the scenes, setting things up, doing my things. Um, as Aaron asks, how long do shadow bans last? Apparently, when you're me, forever. Go figure. Um, But nevertheless, we persist, and I appreciate all the support. Oh, and one final shout out here, Leanne. I gave you some love during Ben After Dark yesterday, but if you didn't get a chance to hear it, she sent me a Venmo, which my Venmo is available in my link tree on my Facebook and YouTube page. Holy shit. I'm in awe that you believe in me enough to donate that kind of money, and I did not expect anything like that. And like, please understand that I work in words, and there's no words that I have to express my just gratitude for what it is that you gave me and the kind of belief that you put in the message that you sent me with that. So thank you very much, and good morning to everybody who's been trickling in here as we go. Sam Plass says, what about posting your show as a podcast again? I'm going to get there eventually, one thing at a time. But yes, we'll have an audio version at some point. I have some people helping me out with that. Adam's asking, what does it mean to be shadow banned? As the TikTok chat will roll their eyes at this, I'll explain it very quickly. I do not have a large following. I'm just under 1,000 people on TikTok. I only started using the app in March of this year. I got to 900 followers between March and June 2nd. And between June 2nd and today, I've gained about 30 followers. And I have videos that were getting tens of thousands of views. We're talking, I have 50,000 view videos, 80,000 view videos, 10,000 like videos, thousands of comments on videos. And on the same day, June 2nd, all my old videos that were garnering traffic all stopped getting views. And all my new videos that I produce, I don't even crack 100 views. And the only reason I crack 100 is I have a group of about 30 people on Discord that are lovely people that anytime I post, they'll hop on the Discord chat and say, Ben just posted, everybody go like and share what he posted. And despite the fact that I have like 20 to 30 lovely people that go and do that every time I post something, I'll end up with 47 views, which means it's the 20 of them and whoever they repost to in their network that sees it, but nobody just randomly sees my content anymore. And it all happened after I joined a creator network and after I posted a video about Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump buying an island in the middle of the Caribbean and the um, similarities I saw between that situation and another situation on an island in another body of water that I'm not going to say out loud because TikTok is run by the all-seeing eye. But I'm sure you guys can all imply what or infer, I should say, what I'm trying to say there. I used to think shadow banning was a myth. I used to think it was just creators that weren't talented that were blaming other reasons for their shortcomings. And I can tell you that I did not forget how to make content overnight, and nobody sees my shit anymore. And meanwhile, the traction that I get on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and anywhere else that I post is still wonderful. So it very obviously is the one problem. It's the problem child there, but I got people staying on me, kicking my ass in gear, so we'll see if we can't undo the trajectory that that path is on. Good morning, Kathleen. Good morning, Rosie. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Lorelai says, thanks, Obama. Exactly. Yeah, I'll blame Obama for it. Shit. All right. Let's get on to the news of the day here. And this was a suggestion, and I oftentimes use this term ironically, and I'm not using it right now, but it's good morning, Susan. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:17 if you're watching this live. If you're watching the recording available later on YouTube, well, then I'll know what time you're watching it. I'm not a fortune teller, but we're live here at 9:17 in the morning. Violet, you just missed a heartfelt thing that I did. You're going to have to go back and watch the first 15 minutes. Um, um, I normally use this term ironically, and I want to just say that I'm not right now. I'm being serious because I recognize that we're going to be jumping into a very sensitive topic. So um, I do want to say trigger warning for any survivors of, and I can't say the words because TikTok is for infants. SA, being being assaulted. You guys know the words I'm looking for. We're talking about Graham Plattner and the alleged accusations against him right now. And so just a fair heads up that we are going to be getting into some pretty heavy topics here. I have to start here. Uh, and I cut a video about it last night. You maybe didn't see it. And I see people saying TikTok's a bit glitchy. I think my internet can't handle this many streams. I need to plug in directly and get OBS set up. That'll happen today. Um, I cut a video about this, and I think it's worth me saying. uh, this is not a blow to the progressive movement. This could potentially be a blow to one man. And what we have been watching happen in the mainstream media the last 3 months, realistically, honestly, since October, um, was I did get the cable. Violet, don't even push it. I did get the cable. What we watched happen over the course of the last 8 months has been no less than a political hit job by the establishment against a politician. And I think what extra pisses me off about the conversation is so many of the people who understand that the uniparty exists, who understands that Republicans and Democrats both are crappy versions of a one party system that has left us high and dry. Then a candidate shows up who absolutely rails against the uniparty, and a certain population of people on both sides of the political aisle seem to be able to find excuses for why they don't support that candidate. For instance, I have people, former coworkers, that told me that what Elon Musk did back in January of 2025 was, in fact, not a Yahtzee salute. And in fact, he is autistic, and that is why he did what he did. Now, allow me to say with my full throat that I worked with autistic children and adults for 4 years in my late teens and early 20s. And I can safely say not one time did they do something that I would confuse with a Yahtzee salute. Not only that, but they very rarely, if never, retweet Yahtzee accounts regularly on the social media site that they bought and used to amplify their voice so many people can hear it. I say all of that to say that the people making excuses for that all of a sudden have become experts and were intimately aware that a Totenkopf was a Yahtzee tattoo. Now, I don't buy that for a single second. I believe that it was a fabricated scandal in an effort to push the establishment to the forefront in the main race. We're watching what's happening in Michigan. Should Hong come out of the race in August in Wisconsin, we're going to watch it happen here in our state. And I think it's normal. I see Ali saying statistically it's the second most used logo. Ali, I'm going to be real with you. I think that's a Gen Z perpetually online thing. I think you would be hard pressed to find somebody that could identify what that is. I had no idea. And the example I always use is that logo is on Christopher Waltz's hat when he played the Jew hunter in Inglorious Bastards, one of the most evil people ever put on cinema. I've seen that movie at least a half a dozen times. Never noticed the insignia on his hat, and never would have noticed that it was a Nazi son of a gun, a Yahtzee insignia, had it not been told to me. And I see Alex saying former cult member. Ali's right. Again, I would argue that's not the normal experience, Alex. I'm just telling you. I would argue that my sentiment is more indicative of how the average person would look at it relative to somebody who was raised in a cult, or a more online culture that tends to talk about this stuff a lot more. One of my favorite tweets of all time says, I love that millennial men haven't gone down the alt-right pipeline, because in their late teens and early 20s, they were finding creative ways to hit each other between the legs rather than hanging out on YouTube. We just separated ourselves from all of that. I just don't think it's normal. Um, I'm telling you my own experience. I'm not going to sit here and fight with a couple commenters. I'm telling you my own experience with it. I don't think it's the norm. And so I don't buy that as a real scandal. Then you had the hit job a week before the primary votes, and it was the article that came out, including the woman who has come clean again yesterday in this bombshell reporting that we're going to get into in a second here. Well, then I guess it's me, it's Plattner, and then me are the two people, and I never thought I was dumb. Thank you for very much, Robin. Um. Vote for Aragon says the first Ben show I ever listened to was a discussion about Musk's salute, and I was like, "Wow, I like this guy, Ben, not Musk." Thank you very much. And that episode is still available on Spotify if you want to go ahead and check it out. But again, I don't placate. If I believed for a single second that the Plattner harbored some kind of actual Yahtzee tendencies, I promise you I wouldn't be pulling my punches. And I think if you're listening to this version of this show, I have earned enough of your trust for you guys to believe me when I say I had no idea what that symbol was. I don't believe for a single second that Plattner believed what it was. And I would argue most millennials don't know that shit. I'm just going to be honest with you. Then you have the New York Times article, and you find out that one of the women has ties to the Heritage Foundation and is a right wing operative. Not to say you shouldn't believe her, but in a political climate, you don't expect it to I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. I apologize. I'm going to need to get better at this at times. But in a political climate, all of a sudden you're nervous. It's a Tara Reid thing, right? Which Joe Biden sucked as a president, but I feel like Tara Reid was coming through with some pretty questionable allegations at the time. Allow me to say this right now. Um, Believe all women is a valid statement, but I view it as do not instinctively disbelieve women when they come forward, which is MAGA's MO. If this exact allegation were levied against Donald Trump, it would already be out of the news cycle. And we all know that I'm right. But that's not the point. So people were able to discard that as well as something that people thought was real, something that should be looked at. As I get a call here, just sit on mute for 1 second, Ali. I'll get you on. Um, um, and now we have this third announcement. We'll get into the third announcement in a second, but I have a feeling Ali wants to talk about the excuse me, the Totenkopf tattoo here. So before we move on to the next conversation, we'll go there. As KG says, better to say listen to women than believe all women. I actually like that quite a bit. But we'll get in we'll get more into that in a second here. Let's see what Ali has on the Totenkopf. And I apologize. Hopefully this is the last day. I'm just gonna hold my phone up to the mic so that the tube of you and the book of faces can hear. What's on your mind, Ali?
Yeah, so back when the planner thing first dropped on Reddit and the older Reddit threads are going around, I broke down the allegation to where I logically it is the one allegation I think he logically can't get out of. So he said that he got this tattoo unknowing of what it was, thinking it was a skull and crossbones. He was in Croatia with his Marine buddies. Croatia has the highest Nazi population per capita to this day. It's very well known, and it was way worse a couple of decades ago. The only way to get to that logo or something of that logo, you have to go to an actual schnazi tattoo parlor that has someone who is willing to tattoo that. And any actual tattoo artist, and this is not just in the States, but around the globe, will not tattoo that symbol onto people. And there are literal lists of hate symbols that go out to tattoo artists so they know what to look for. Therefore, logically speaking, someone along the line knew it was a schnazi tattoo and he still went along with it. But also,
So wait. Before you move on though, so since we're talking about logical consistencies, then you're telling me that he decided to not cover it up at any point, even at the beginning of his election, thinking that nobody would put it together when, as you're saying, it's the second most known symbol of Yahtzeism. Like, wouldn't that be?
politicians not shirtless in every campaign ad. Previous to 2024, I had never seen a shirtless candidate. That's not normal. It's in a spot that he is able to wear a shirt always. Always. Like, it's not something that he can, not hide, like through a sleeve that it's on his arm or it's on his leg and he wears shorts. It was something that people looked for because he had it in a spot that was covered. And it's not like he had any of his Marine buddies coming out and saying, oh, yeah, we did get it with him. We all had that. We all got it covered because if it actually had meaning to what it was, why would he cover it then? He would fix it. He would do something. If it was a skull and crossbones, he would have been able to prove that by showing the tattoo.
I hear you. I appreciate the logic, and I'll let you keep going because I know you had more to say. I don't know. Something about it doesn't add up, but I think you have a valid logical through line there. I don't buy into the idea that your first move wouldn't be to cover it up because obviously I feel like the dude's shirtless in every third picture he's in, so he had to know.
I don't know any shirtless pictures of Mandami or of Trump.
Well, to be fair, I posted all the time. Mom Donnie did a shirt, a rap with no shirt, wearing an apron, where he was rapping in his native language in a.
Something completely different. He was actually approaching a rap career. Like that was for that. But when it comes to a politician in office, they're not shirtless. I know so many women politicians that constantly get comments because of their breast size or whatever, and they shouldn't wear that to a committee meeting. It was too revealing. The same applies for men, but theirs are it's more whether or not they have a shirt on, not it's too revealing, yada yada. Plattner, unfortunately, had all of these in his closet and it got known. The Reddit threads were found. All of these things were found. And like you can go on the Wayback Machine and you can go onto Facebook now and find the comments that people were leaving talking about his behaviors and talking about the tattoo. And you can go and find all of these things. And I don't know if I can logically agree with the Democrats actually going and bugging the internet that much. It just logically doesn't make sense that they would go into history and make comments to appear from 2023 or even 2015 from Reddit stuff.
Sure.
That's all. I just figured I would throw that out there because a lot of things that I tangibly can't have, like there's a good or a bad, I break down like logically, and like Bryce and I will debate things. They'll be like, take this side, I'll take this side, and we'll like logically at the end of the day, emotions aren't going to get us through it.
Yeah, I dig the attitude. Yeah, and but Violet also says you have a very different upbringing than me because you grew up on the internet, and I'm
Personally, didn't have access to the internet till I was around 15, 16.
yeah, but you're also a much brighter person than most people that are 23. So I think you need to take that into account as well.
Most of the younger generation, that's why they didn't like Plattner, and that's why most of his base is older white moms that simp over him, because most of the people in the DSA that are progressive in Gen Z know that that was a tone cough and that is Schnazi insignia. Like I've never witnessed in my generation someone who didn't know what that was, I guess, until I saw Plattner and his thing. And then it was the older generation, as you said, that didn't really know, but it was the older generation. It was you guys that taught us what it was. So there's a clear disconnect.
Yeah, I'm just saying you need to keep in mind that this is a show hosted by a guy that I'm from the era where you say Brad Pitt was in that movie, and then your friend says, "Nuh-uh, Tom Cruise," and then yeah.
You don't know the second most Nazi item, you're still in your box.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I would say the SS tattoo is probably the second most. I would argue the Totenkopf isn't even the second most. I would say the lightning bolts probably would make more sense and would be recognizable.
Neo-Nazi culture. I love TikTok shop. Anyways, you should probably drop me down anyway since I just said that. So,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
thank you. I just wanted to throw that out there and just start a discussion just to do it.
Yeah, good stuff. I appreciate it as always, Ali. And obviously, we don't see eye to eye on that, but that's all right. Jim, Ethan says a lot of WW2 experts on the internet, apparently. My Pantera tattoo would probably offend someone, says CKK. Susan says the Totenkopf was designated as a Yahtzee hate symbol by the Allied nations immediately after World War II. Again, what I was saying before she said I was inside the box was, and I think a lot of people listening can probably relate. We didn't look shit up. We didn't have the internet in our phones. We barely had the internet. So, like, this was not a thing. I found out what the Totenkopf was 8 months ago, or however many months ago when the tattoo scandal broke. And here's the thing, the tattoo isn't even what I wanted to talk about here today. But just to be perfectly clear, I don't necessarily buy into it, but that's a generational gap thing that I was unaware of, and I'm happy to be informed about. This is the way people are supposed to take in new information. And who knows? If you're a longtime listener of the show, I used to always say, thank you, Swanee. Um, I'm not anticipating changing your mind today. I'm just anticipating putting new thoughts in your head and allowing you to ruminate over them for the next couple days and allowing you to come to your own conclusions. And for the record, I'm saying Allie might have done that to me, not vice versa. I'm going to take what she said and I'm going to think about it. Is that better? Is that better, bruv? Rusty says, aren't there a few OnlyFans congresswomen in the GOP? I have no idea, and if there are, who cares? Not me. But in any event, I think it gets to a larger point, though. We now have a third accusation. And if you weren't listening to Ben After Dark yesterday, or I should say, if you were, I apologize for reiterating some of the stuff you heard yesterday. And welcome. Our TikTok audience is a little bigger than usual, so please follow this account if you haven't already. We're live 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. So thank you for being here. We do political talk formerly on the radio. Now we do it a little bit differently, but I'm glad you guys are all here. But if you haven't heard the most recent accusations, they're pretty damning. Um, it's difficult to not hear them. Like, we're talking about conversations between the woman making an accusation and her therapist back in 2019. In 2019, Graham Plattner was an oyster man. You know what I mean? He had no political ambitions, at least none publicly. Who knows how he talked in his personal life? There would be no reason for that conversation to be happening from a I want to make sure I can ruin this guy's political career perspective. There's also other boyfriends between Plattner and 2026 that also can kind of corroborate the same story. And I recognize there's a lot of you out there. There's one person who interacts with this show regularly who's listening in Maine, um, who is skeptical of the timing. Cynthia in Florida is skeptical of the timing. And I get the timing is very obviously political. They waited until this moment. For those of you not in the know, there is a 7-day period where Plattner can drop out, and you'll never guess who gets to nominate the candidate for the Democratic Party in Maine. That's right, the Democratic Party. So they essentially would pull a Kamala Harris in the state of Maine, put a candidate up there, and I but all have chalked up Maine to a loss for the Democratic Party at this point. Um, because I don't know that Plattner, were he to stay in, would be able to overcome this, and we'll get into that in a second. And if he leaves, whatever blue MAGA milk toast centrist they put in there is not going to be a good enough candidate to beat Susan Collins, because the entire excitement around tax the rich populism, no more weapons for our allies in the Middle East policy, universal health care, to come out of that and be like, we got to fight against Trump. It's going to kneecap any kind of momentum that was going on in Maine at that time. So I all but have chalked Maine up to a loss, which kind of leads us to the conversation about whether or not Graham Plattner should stay in. Now, I cut a video yesterday, Myers saying run Bernie. He's already a senator. I'm seeing people suggest Heather Cox Richardson, who's a little blue MAGA for my liking in and of herself, but I think that's an interesting one. But here's how I look at this. And I cut a video about it last night, essentially right after I read the article. I just kind of reacted, gut shot, my immediate reaction to what took place. And I called for him to step down. And I said that it's not about one man, the progressive movement, that is, it's about an entire ideology, and it shouldn't be associated with one individual. What's interesting about it, and I will take, let me throw a link up here on the YouTube, and I need to check Facebook comments as well. I haven't forgotten about you guys. I promise I will get to you. I just still have a lot of sources of info right now. I did call for him to step down, and part of me almost wants to be petty and not do that, because there's a large percentage of me that is still frustrated at the MAGA jagoffs who just bitched and bitched and bitched until I got fired for telling me that I'm too one-sided. And I don't think there's anybody that looks at politics with a more even keel attitude. I shouldn't say not anybody, but definitely not in talk radio. And so part of me wants to be the caricature that they think I am, and lean into that. Um, and then all I think about is all of the women that are in my life. Because I hate to break it to you, MAGA, your orange dad president is convicted of what you're claiming Graham Plattner did was inexcusable, and you're calling it rumors. So no one gives a shit what you think about Graham Plattner and whether or not he should stay in the race. I want you to know that. Unless your next sentence is, and Donald Trump should step down, no one gives a shit what you think. And then you look at the blue MAGAs. Two of the loudest voices right now calling for Graham Plattner to step down are Kirsten Gillibrand of New York and Chuck Schumer of New York. Do you know who they endorsed in the Mamdani race? Andrew Cuomo, who had a dozen credible accusations of sexual harassment against him, but the other guy was a Muslim who was running on taxing rich people and not giving weapons to our allies in the Middle East. So it turns out that 12 counts of sexual harassment is worth overlooking in the name of making sure rich people don't feel scared about their money. But now it is an unimpeachable, or it is an impeachable offense, and Graham Plattner needs to step down. And you watch the MAGAs turn a blind eye to it, and you watch the blue MAGAs turn a blind eye to it. And it's so easy, because I promise you, I'm feeling it too. It's so easy to turn inward, and I appreciate that, Beans. It's so easy to turn inward and embrace the dark side, right? Just be like, you know what? If MAGA and Blue MAGA want to play this way, who am I? Who are we? Why do we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard? Except for I do believe progressivism is a higher standard of politics. I believe that progressives are more informed about politics. I just had a call from a 23-year-old who I think would have schooled most 43-year-olds on politics because she's a progressive and she chooses to stay informed about things. A lot of you who listen to this show, stay informed about these kind of things, and have a great attitude. And I do believe that progressivism opens the door to something more. But the amount of hypocrisy and disgusting comments coming from the MAGAs and the blue MAGAs. I'm willing to have an actual conversation with all of you because I recognize that, like Beans, he says, I don't know how anyone could argue that you don't have the most balanced approach. And I try to do that. But of course, if you make fun of the Orange Dad President followers tend to cry really, really loud. Um, we got somebody trying to come in here. We'll see what we got, and then I'm going to keep my thoughts rolling. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
All right, what's on your mind?
So, I just want to touch on a point that you made that I think was excellent. And this is coming from myself, being from our country, that I'm seeing. And it's about the politics that you just brought up. The fact that we have blue MAGA and we have MAGA, right? And my biggest criticism with all of this is we are doing what Star Wars is doing. We are basically just acting like they are. We are no better. I mean, society, Blue MAGA and MAGA are doing exactly what the Jedi Council and the Sith are doing. It's becoming a consistent push and pull of which side can outdo the other, and it's not doing any good. And like you said, we we're not going to get better if this doesn't stop, right? Because look what happened to Jedi Council. Anakin turned. Why? Because people lost faith in them. And you have the other side that is trying to say, well, you know what? We're the right people because we're the ones that I choose. See, and it's not doing any good. And I think that you really opened my eyes on the fact that we as a society have turned politics into a game of tug of war with both sides trying to, move the pendulum, and the pendulum isn't going to keep moving when both sides are trying to destroy each other.
I think the Star Wars analogy is so appropriate. Those prequels get resoundingly mocked all the time, and I think they were more prescient and observant of what was going on in American politics than I think a lot of us are even willing to admit today, let alone when they actually came out. And like you highlighted, I say it all the time on my show that Democrats, the only way they lose is by suppressing their own vote. They'll highlight the Trump agenda and the way that he tries to suppress the vote. No one does more to suppress the vote than Democrats with their own actions and candidates that they run every single day. And I think the comparison between that and the Jedi is incredibly appropriate. Um, right.
Because Anakin saw the fact that the Jedi Council is not telling the truth. They're not helping anything. They're just pointing at the Sith, going, "Hey, they're the bad guys. They're the people who you should be against." And that's not changing the minds. It didn't change his heart, and it only pushed him further away. And it's what Democrats are doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Hey, I appreciate it. I think this is your first time interacting with the show. I hope you'll call back, all right? Yeah, take it easy. Um, yeah, and I genuinely believe that's a fair assessment of matters because it's something that I was 22. I've shared this story. I graduated from college in 2010, and Democrats were the party that allowed me to stay on my parents' health care for another 4 years. And I was like, oh, very clearly, this is the party I should support. And now it's a lot harder to look at it that way. Can one of the mods hop on the YouTube channel, please? Susan's asking if they can remind viewers how to support the show via Venmo and whatnot. If someone could throw the link tree up in, or I guess actually only Jen can do that because I still haven't modded Allie. I got to get you on there, Allie. And I'll do the same for Aaron, the intern, as well. We'll get there. Hard to hear the caller. I hear that, Kay. Today should be the day. I ran into some snags yesterday, but I'm going to hopefully get you all synced up on the same software so you can all hear and see each other all the time, which has been the goal here. I've fallen way far behind on the chat. I'm just going to pick a couple out here. Mallory says, just because a man may be liberal or leftist doesn't make him inherently safe. Exactly. Exactly. It's disappointing. But I will say, and I said this last night, I don't play the identity politics game, but there is something to be said about having like a burly white dude who served in the armed forces who says tax the rich and help people who are weaker than you. That would speak to a generation of younger people that otherwise isn't getting that message. Um, and I really wanted to believe in it. And for all we know, and this is kind of where I wanted to lead with this conversation, he might not drop out. But allow me to read a couple more of these, and then I'll do my thoughts on that. Sharon says, if Plattner does run, will he turn out to be another Fetterman? That's been a fear of mine as well. A wolf in sheep's clothing, given the news cycle, I think this will blow over in a matter of days. Again, if the exact same allegations were levied against Trump, we would have already moved on. And if it were levied against a blue MAGA, it would depend on if they were running against a leftist or running against a Republican, if it actually mattered to people. Aaron says we need to hold every SA accusation to the same standard. They either all matter and should step down, or none of them matter. I mean, I think they should be held to the same standard in terms of assessment, right? It should be held to the same standard in terms of you listen to the women, you give them the benefit of the doubt, and then you dive into it. Like, I would hope if some random person came up and said, do you know what Ben did in 2017? I would hope that anybody who has ever interacted with me would be like, that doesn't seem like something Ben would do. And then we'd move on, right? Like, I would hope that there would be some element of that. And like, I promise you, if Plattner is guilty of what he did, the people in his life knew that was part of who he was. They're not surprised by it because you rarely are, right? You can tell who the weirdos are. But it seems as though when it was Joe Biden, she was roundly discarded from liberals. And when it's the 57 people accusing Donald Trump, they're roundly discarded by the MAGAs. And then when it's a progressive, the MAGAs and the liberals dogpile and all act like this is unbelievable. Nobody does this. And We have the burden. I call it the plight of the progressive all the time. It really does. It's awesome being progressive, and it fucking sucks at the same time. And this is one of those days where it fucking sucks because my conscience won't allow me to pretend that this can be looked past. KG says Trump openly bragged about assaulting women, so MAGA can STFU. Adam agrees. Um, why don't you try balancing the phone on the mic? I'm telling you, today's the last day. Don't worry about the technical shit for the rest of the show today. I promise you it'll be good for tomorrow morning. And Jim says the Democratic establishment leadership seems to be willing to burn it all down, just like the Republicans, all to stay in power, even when they don't have any, as they keep telling us. Well, I've said it before, Jim. I don't know that I've seen a political party try to lose harder than the Democratic Party in 2024 until, of course, I've seen the Republican Party in 2026. And now I'm like, oh no, now these guys are the ones that actively want to lose. So I think there's some validity to that statement for sure. And then thank you, Violet. And then on top of all of this, CKK says if Plattner did was he accused of, would this be a one-off? Wouldn't it be a pattern of behavior with more victims? Well, if you haven't read the article, it's he was, I think, in a relationship with a woman who was not in the mood. And according to her accounting of the matter, he came home shit-faced, and after multiple times of her saying no, he kept doing it, eventually kept pushing until he eventually went through with it. That feels like if it's something that happened once, it probably happened again. It takes a certain personality type for sure to operate that way. Uh, it just sucks. Ali says he does have a pattern that's able to be seen on Facebook. So there you go. Susan says, Lorna Hajini, she is an executive director of JP Morgan Chase. She is explicitly accused of sexual or SA and grape. She is not stepping down, which is the norm. And it's like, do you want to? Because I'm telling you right now, the next MAGA is going to call it lies and not step down. I'm telling you right now, the next blue MAGA will have the full throated endorsement of Chuck Schumer as long as that person is running against a progressive. So it's a matter of accepting right now that you're going to deal with a bunch of hypocritical morons on the other side of this and coming to peace with that now. And I think that's very hard to do. I don't think, and I don't know if Swanee's still listening, but I mean, like, it's worth admitting, like, 20-something-year-old Ben watched a guy get accused twice of doing something terrible to women, but he also won my football team 2 Super Bowls. And I was like, well, I mean, are they making it up? Can we really believe what they were saying? Because I was in my early 20s and stupid. I was so stupid. Like, and I have a feeling that a 25-year-old Bernie bro Ben would probably be struggling pretty hard with this one as well. Shit, I'm struggling with it right now because I'm watching people that defend Elon Musk's Nazi salute, that defend Donald Trump walking into women's changing rooms, that defend all of the deplorable behavior. I used the example yesterday. It's a bit of a throwback, but who remembers Roy Moore running for the Senate in Alabama in 2018? And there he was when he was a 32-year-old signing the yearbooks of 17-year-olds. And when asked, did you date these minors? He would say yes, but I always got the parents' permission first. And no one called for him to get off of the ballot. He actually ran and lost within the margin of error. He came within 1.5% of winning an election in Alabama while essentially admitting to dating minors in his mid 30s or early 30s. And that's the kind of double standard that we're running into here. Yeah, Susan Collins, Aaron, is the I don't she has some kind of medical condition where she always shakes, and um it's a running bit that she's always very concerned about fascism. Like it'll be like, what do you think about Donald Trump doing this with Shashmorshin? And she'd be like, oh, it's very concerning. And it's just always very concerning, and then she goes and votes for the MAGAs still. Craig's asking if signing a yearbook is naughty. I'm sorry, dude. If you're in your 30s, tell me what scenario other than my cousin, maybe, who's still in high school, being like, oh, will my radio cousin sign my yearbook? In what world would me signing a high schooler's yearbook make sense and not be suspicious? In what planet does that not raise eyebrows? And then he turns around and admits that he was dating 17-year-olds. Um, and Jarmani says, gross if the parents gave permission. I highly doubt it. You know what I mean? I think that was just a line because he thought he could joke his way out of it and the good old boy network would vote him in. That's why Doug Jones, a Democrat, was the senator for Alabama for a couple years. That's the only way that happens is you have to catch the guy with his name in the yearbook. He doesn't drop out. So that brings us all to the final point of all this. Should Graham Plattner drop out? Yes. Yes, he should. Will he drop out? I don't know. We're going to find out. I said it right now. Ben After Dark airs at 7 p.m. Central Time. Take it easy, Aaron. Um, uh, um, if we do not know by 7 p.m. Central Time what's happening, he's staying in the race. He's either going to drop out between the end of this show and the beginning of my evening show, or he's not dropping out. That's my belief. He's not going to drop out on Wednesday. He's not going to drop out on Saturday. I believe he has until the 13th, so Monday of next week. Unless, as CKK says, he should stay in and nuke the election. Like, maybe he stays in until there's 4 hours before the Democrats can make a nominee and just do that. Cassandra's asking if Janet Mills never did withdraw. No, she didn't, and she'll probably end up at the top of the ticket and she'll lose by 7 points. Yeah, and Violet's saying we need to stand firm against SA culture and he needs to drop out. I'm right there with you. But I don't know if he will. Robin has something she wants to say. I'll get you right on, Robin. Just sit tight on mute for a second here. And I see Susan. All right, I'm going to mute you here while we wait here. But I don't know if he's going to. And here's the crazy part. If he does stay in, he might still win. And I'm not saying that as a reason for him to stay in. I am saying that, oh, we lost Robin. Son of a gun. I'm sorry, Robin. I was going to get you on. I just wanted to finish my point. The way we do politics now, Donald Trump won twice. Donald Trump won with grab him by the pee. Donald Trump won with I love going into the 13-year-olds' dressing rooms at the beauty pageant. Donald Trump won with the E. Jean Carroll accusation and eventual guilty verdicts. And all good, Robin. And Graham Plattner absolutely has the capacity to do the exact same thing. Should he? No. And allow me to say full-throatedly, no, he shouldn't be. But what should happen and what might happen or what will happen are oftentimes not the same thing. And we have entered a political discourse in 2026 where as long as you are willing to deliver on the tangibles, an affordable life, achieving the American dream, a feeling of safety, owning a home, not going broke to healthcare, people will probably vote for you in spite of these things. Not condoning it, not saying that it should happen. I'm saying I think a lot of people have to embrace that, and I think there's going to be a bit of a discourse. I see the people calling out Bernie Sanders for not condemning him yet, and I think it's an interesting conversation to be had. You know what, the most relatable experience I have to what we're going through right now is I was a big fan of Noam Chomsky, famous left-wing philosopher. I loved listening to him speak. I thought he had a lot of good ideas, and then I found out he was affiliated with our friend Jeffrey in his island over there, and I was like, oh wow, this sucks. I really, really liked that guy, and this sucks because clearly he was a piece of crap. Let's see what we have here. All right, Sensei, we'll get you on in a second here. And I have Noam Chomsky books. I used to quote him. I used to use him to help me inform my own opinions. And I have sworn that guy off for the rest of my life. Doesn't make me happy to do it. It's because I have principles and I stand by them, and I don't call all all accusations against people I like fake. So Trumpers will throw the Noam Chomsky thing or the Bill Gates thing as if like leftists are pro Bill Gates in people's faces, and then you say Donald Trump was mentioned 38,000 times in the unredacted part of the files, and it's fake news. And I'm sorry, but I've had about up to here. I was told yesterday night that the name calling might be a little juvenile, but if you're stupid, you shouldn't get offended when people call you stupid. If you're going to play these games, as MSNBC runs all the quotes as we're talking right now for Graham Plattner to drop out, and also endorsed and advocated for Andrew Cuomo. Remain consistent, progressives, but please understand that I think we have to get a whole hell of a lot more aggressive, highlighting exactly how fraudulent everybody else is in this conversation. What's on your mind, Sensei?
Yeah, I agree with that whole Chomsky thing. That was a disappointment. But going back to Plattner, and I'm going to probably get a lot of pushback or hate for what I'm about to say. So let's say it ends up being Plattner versus Collins. And let's say, Plattner is guilty of SA. What choice do you make?
I'd sit out. I would sit out, Sensei.
You would sit out knowing that he would perpetuate MAGA.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying you're wrong for your attitude on the matter. I'm saying what I would do, and you're fine for thinking otherwise. But I would sit out.
What I basically posed was, do the ends justify the means?
Oh right? Yeah, sure.
That's the basic question I'm asking for everybody here. It's like, I mean, even with his baggage and knowing who Susan Collins is, you would sit out. And that's for everybody. I'm not just pointing my finger at you.
Sure, of course. And anybody throw in the comments. And I appreciate the question, Sensei. I'm going to let you go because people are struggling to hear the phones thing here. So I'm going to let you go. But I think that's interesting food for thought. What would you guys do if you couldn't hear them? What would you guys do if you were in that position? No wrong answers. I mean, I have my answer, but I mean, everybody's allowed to do what they think is right because he's exactly right. Susan Collins votes with Donald Trump 94% of the time. Donald Trump advocates for the masked Virgin Army unaliving Americans in the streets. He advocates for cutting taxes for billionaires while the cost of living crisis shoots through the roof through the rest of us. He advocates for illegal wars on the behest of our allies in the Middle East that don't benefit us in any kind of tangible way. And Susan Collins is a rubber stamp on all of that. If she continues being in Congress, she's going to continue to be that rubber stamp. Do you sit out? Mallory says, I'd still vote, but I'd either find a different candidate that's good if there is one or skip voting on that race. Oh, yeah, I'd absolutely still show up and vote for the other races. I'm not implying I would take the entire year off because one candidate of mine was a failure. And that's another major point that I made in the video. This is not an entire progressive problem. This is a one-person problem. I see. What's that say? Dumpster Fire says you're wrong. That's cool, man. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think there's differing opinions on the matter, and I absolutely welcome yours. Um, Ethan says Plattner's volunteer base. By the way, Ethan, I wrote your phone number down. We got to grab drinks soon. Plattner's volunteer base is dead after the newest allegation. I think he's dropping out. It's just a matter of when. I'm keeping my eyes on it. If it's going to happen or not here. Cassandra says, dear leader stealing from us all day, every day. Dear leader does not do wrong. That definitely, yeah. I mean, honestly, that is a very serious attitude here. Ali says supporting SA is objectively wrong. Craig says I'd vote for Al Franken. He ran in Ohio. I'd argue what Al Franken did is incredibly different than what's being accused here, but you're right. Violet says we have to grieve the loss and move forward. What about everybody else's mind? Don't be afraid. I'm not going to mock anybody for an opinion here because, unlike most times, I'm stuck between my heart and my brain because Sensei represents my brain. That Susan Collins is objectively bad for this country. She's bad for America. MAGA has no ideas other than demonizing trans people and Mexicans. Like, there's a lot to highlight there. Jarmani says it would be a ballot time decision, which I get. Miss J says, I think alcohol was his problem. The man has admitted to this. Robin says, I want Collins out of there. Tom says, leave it up to the voters. Which, if that were the case, and this is what my office hours on Kirk's Minocqua Brewing Substack is going to be about, the era of purity politics is officially dead. If the leave it up to the voters attitude is the sentiment. And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing when it comes to like mean tweets or things that you used to say. Look, I'm a product of the 90s, all right? We called everything gay. We had no concept of what the right way to talk was like back then. And most of us had to evolve. Carla says no free grape passes because you drank too much, period. Exactly. I'm right there with you. Frank Beach says a certain radio station sucks now. We'll try to tune in here. Also, check out my Tuba U page. Every subscriber helps. I appreciate you checking me out on all channels. If we decide to leave it to the voters, which is a fine, like I'm telling you, I am not saying what I think should happen. I am telling you what I think should happen, how I would handle it, what I would expect to see. But I will say it is a laundry list of all the shittiest Democrats calling for him to step down. Like, you show me a Democrat with an approval rating in the single digits, and those are the people calling for him to step down. And that doesn't make it wrong. I'm just telling you that these people smell blood in the water. They recognize that they are quasi unelectable themselves at this point, and they don't have horrible accusations against them. They're just bad at politics. And it gets so frustrating seeing the same people that were willing to fall in line behind an Andrew Cuomo or behind Donald Trump now step up and say, well, this guy's got to go because he's the only one saying maybe we should stop taking corporate dollars and push back against the duopoly. I get why that is so frustrating. I'm just checking my Facebook chat here really quick. Felicia says, if that Cheeto got elected, no variables could predict the outcome. Generally, it is lesser of evils in this environment. Jen says he is an oyster farmer. Ben says RFK Jr. admitted to his past substance abuse and the left can't let it go. And this is bringing all of purity politics to a head, is it not? There's a county council person in my hometown who I'm going to be reaching out to next week to bring on the program, who dealt with addiction and is now a very successful person, kind of pushing back against the duopoly in the city of Pittsburgh. And a lot of people try to hold her substance abuse over her head as well. And I don't think that's the right move, as if we all weren't young once, right? Not me, of course. I always just clean as a whistle the whole time. Would never admit to anything. Although I'm not on FCC airwaves anymore. Violet says we have to hold the line. KG says not sure how I'd vote. Where I am a Mainer, but I did vote for Plattner. I could no longer bash Trump on SA. Exactly. That all goes out the window. And again, liberals threw it out the window. Them acting like the holier than thou flank. If you guys didn't see the video I posted last night, Neera Tanden said, say what you want about the centrist Democrats. At least we vet our candidates. Meanwhile, Andrew Cuomo, Bill Clinton, she worked for Bill fucking Clinton. Like, I think that woman has a humiliation kink, because why would you ever put that in writing in public? Because it so obviously and so easily is disprovable. Progressives do hold themselves to a higher standard. And I think they should continue doing so. Here's the thing. There's 85 people watching me on YouTube right now. There's 30 people watching me on TikTok. There's another 8 people on Facebook. There's another 60 something on Substack. We're around 200 people. Any one of you shares the same ideals and beliefs that Graham Plattner does. The fact that he might suck does suck as a candidate at this point doesn't mean progressive politics suck. Doesn't mean that there wasn't a massive groundswell of support and belief in the system that he was pushing forward. The concepts that he stood and stands for still apply. The packaging is now dented. The packaging can be replaced. The contents inside are what matters. Pushing back against Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand is popular. Pushing back against a broken down healthcare system is popular. Pushing back against an affordability crisis that is brought about by almost nothing other than corporate greed and our government never stopping printing money is popular. The actions that this man has engaged in are not. And remembering that in this era of frustration is important. And I'm not even convinced if he drops out. And I have insiders on his campaign that I'm going to reach out to after this show, but it's probably going to be off the record, unfortunately. I'm going to be reaching out to people to see if whether or not he's actually going to drop out. But as Ali says, we can do the work. The work can be done. And what he built is difficult. I don't want it to sound like it's not difficult. It's difficult because organizing is difficult. But the message is popular. It's very popular. It's a shitty day today in the name of actually representing something outside of the duopoly. You know what's funny? And I say this all the time. I said it all the time before the firing, let alone after. We live in a very politically illiterate state, realistically time period, but the people in my region really don't have a firm grasp of politics. And I think a lot of people, when I was bashing Joe Biden, believed I was a moderate, believed I was a centrist because they don't understand politics. And when I was sitting there saying Joe Biden isn't doing enough to expand the social safety net, he's not doing enough to forgive student loans. Why are we paying for more wars overseas? Why are we pretending that we're not doing a Shmenocide over in the Middle East? they assumed that that was from the perception of a moderate. And I think a lot of right-wingers assumed I was on their side until their orange dad president became president. Meanwhile, they tried to act high-minded, like they live outside of the purview of this two-party system. When meanwhile, they're just Republicans that want to cosplay as anarchists. And I think this story is kind of bringing a lot of that to light. Shitty, shitty time to be a progressive right now, in Maine specifically. But this isn't where the movement ends, to say the very least. It's going to move on from here, whether the centrist Dems like it or not. And yeah, they're going to be able to put Kamala Harris or whomever at the top of the ticket in Maine, and they will get their fucking brains beat in, and lose by 7 to 10 points. But it doesn't change the fact that there is a desire for this, and you're seeing it happen. And I'm telling you right now, when a progressive wins in Michigan and when a progressive wins in Wisconsin, the whole narrative that this is only saved for blue states and it's not popular politics goes out the window. And they're going to have to actually try and find a way to compete in the idea marketplace, as the free market individualists love to talk about, against progressive, and they're going to get fucking annihilated. Miss Killa K says Schumer is thrilled Collins will win and more money will be sent to our allies in the Middle East. Nobody believed Tara Reid against Biden. Exactly. And also, Killa K, if you weren't listening, Chuck Schumer endorsed Andrew Cuomo, who was accused 12 times over of sexual harassment and was also responsible for the thousands of elderly folks passing away in elder homes. But, the other guy was Muslim, so tomato, tomato, really. Yeah, it's just, it's a shame that we're here today. Yeah. It's wild that we find ourselves in this position. But I mean, realistically, that's all I have on that matter. And when I say all I have, we're an hour and 20 minutes into the show today. So I think that's about all I have to say there. While we're talking about electability, maybe a little bit of good news before we move on to the next story. Some recent polling showed up, and unfortunately, TikTok, I'll actually Violet's asking what the pirate pumpkin is on my wall. Okay, real quick. So this up here is a pumpkin in a pirate patch. I was at a bachelor party for a friend of mine. We were at a place where we were on a boat, and let's just say I had a few too many, and I was wearing a bright orange pumpkin shirt, and I was yelling at other people on boats as if I were a pirate. Then you flash forward to the evening, and I had wrapped a t-shirt around a giant piece of wood, covered it in lighter fluid, and made a giant torch. And I was just walking through uttering absolute nonsense. When I came upon a couple having a moment, uh, sitting on a dock, and I switched from pirate mode into Jason Voorhees mode, ironically enough, real quick. And when I heard the music they were playing, it was a country song called You and Me Go Fishing in the Dark. And I was like, there's no way this is a real fucking song. And I went back and told everybody what I discovered on my voyage. And they were like, no, that's a real song. And we played it like 1,000 times during the course of that bachelor party. And so it's a pirate flag, and underneath the pirate pumpkin, it says, "In the dark we fish." Um, so that's the story behind that. I hope you guys appreciate it. Um, but in any event, Mr. Sinister, chill out. But in any event, let's. It was a really fun time. It was a really fun time. And then I got back from that bachelor party, and I was still kind of tuned up. I was just, my emotional state was all over the place. And I got back. I was living in the city of Pittsburgh, on back in like 2000. Well, when would that have been? I don't even remember honestly the year. It was when Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was in theaters. And I drove straight to my dad's house. I was like, let's go see Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And he's like, nah, I'm too wrapped up in stuff. It's like 9:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, but I took off that day as well, like as a recover day. And it had come out that Friday, and I was like, "Let's go see Guardians." He's like, "Nah, dude, I got shit to do." And I was like, "Fine." And if you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the whole thing is about the relationships between fathers and sons. And I'm sitting there. I've only cried during 3 movies in my entire life, and one of them was Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because I was sitting there when Yondu was saving Peter Quill towards the end. He was like, "He might be your father, but he's not your daddy." And then it shows all the memories that Peter had with Yondu after he got scooped up in the spaceship, and I'm just sitting there like, I love my dad, and so was that was the 3 hour period that I had during that. So, Dad, if you're listening, way to not show up to that. But that's my attitude. Wisco girl says thanks for story time, Ben. Yeah, I still like I'm still trying to find a balance right now, and I have less notes than I normally do until I get in my normal studio. I want to get back to that blend of like doing hard-hitting politics and then kind of segueing into stories like that. So I appreciate you, Violet, for asking the question just to get me going on something a little more lighthearted. Because I do want to bring the um same radio attitude to all these different social media apps because I think it's unique. Um what do we have here? I'm starting to realize that liberals are almost as bad as MAGA when it comes to being righteous and humorless. I mean, it like I say it all the time. Anything is funny through the right lens. Shane Gillis has hilarious commentary about the Special Olympics and having worked the Special Olympics. That as somebody who works with special needs kids, I find it hilarious. Then you have the jackasses running around just throwing R slurs around, and they say people just don't get my edgy humor. No, dude, you're just not funny. And so I don't know what you were saying that has you all up in arms right now, and I'm not going to be bothered to figure out what it is. I'm in the middle of a show. But something tells me, based on what I know about all parties involved, you might have said something stupid. And that's fine. People can say stupid shit. But like the whole, oh, no one underappreciates my dark humor. It's just like, as someone that can get a room full of strangers to laugh, anything's funny. It's about delivery. I don't know, Allie. You're kind of a lib. Um, I'm joking. Please, please, please keep helping. Um, yeah, all right. I'm just going to ignore that. If you guys can take those comments anywhere else, please. All right. In any event, I do want to shift gears here. No, yeah, glad to answer, Ken. By the way, Ken, eventually when I have advertisements for Ben After Dark, I'm going to use your quote where you were like, this was incredibly disjointed and fun, because I think that's the best way to describe the show, and that killed me. Um, so I appreciate that very much. I'll tell you what, man, I am trying to do a show, so I'm going to put you in timeout now. We'll talk tomorrow because I need to focus for the next 40 minutes, and this isn't your show. So, in any event, um, but I appreciate that nevertheless. So, I'm going to share my screen as I get better at doing this. So I apologize. Um, Share screen. There we go. It might create a bit of a little cascading effect here, but don't worry about it. We'll get it all worked out here for you. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. And then we say add to stage. There we go. And then I'm going to take you guys over here. Okay. All right. Stop. Stop. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm very popular. This is the most recent polling for Wisconsin. And allow me to. Can I flip the screen while I'm doing this here? Hopefully, last day we're doing it this way. But Okay, so this is what we're dealing with the most recent polling data in Wisconsin. And if you haven't seen my post about what this means, I want you guys to all take this in right now. And when I talk to you guys about how, and Harambe, that was a funny joke. Good job. Thank you for being here. This kind of ties into the conversation that we were just having about Maine. The concept about electability, the concept about winning elections, the concept about what will be acceptable in different places. For those of you that saw that there, it shows Francesca Hong barely leading the pack, Mandela Barnes in second, Sarah Rodriguez in a distant third at this point, with everybody else plus undecided making up 23%. By the way, one of those somebody else's is Kelda Royce. She was on my program yesterday, so if you didn't get a chance to check it out, it's available on YouTube, and I believe it is also kept on the Minocqua Brewing Time Substack as well, although I'm struggling to find that link there. But so, in any event, it is available on my YouTube page if you would like to be informed and get a better idea from that perspective as well. And this ain't even a pro Francesca thing. There is either any of those candidates, according to the attitude there, are just as popular as one another. Sarah Rodriguez will beat Tom Tiffany. Mandela Barnes will beat Tom Tiffany. Francesca Hong will beat Tom Tiffany. MAGA Republicans have nothing to run on. That was the theme of my article that I wrote for the Minocqua Brewing podcast today that's available on the Substack, was that Democrats need to stop playing defense. They should be totally on the offense. Tom Tiffany voted for illegal war. Tom Tiffany voted for tariffs that have only exacerbated a cost of living crisis that was already out of hand before the tariffs were applied. He is responsible for a 700% increase in farming bankruptcies. The list goes on and on. And there will be a concerted effort to tell you that progressivism will not win in politics because of something defund the police or something tax the rich. And I'm here to tell you right now, nothing could be further from the truth. In the most recent polling data, and that is not the only data that says that, but it is the most recent polling data available that highlights that nothing could be further from the truth. El Sayed in Michigan is beating the hell out of Haley Stevens right now, and I think they try and flaunt it because Alyssa Slotkin only beat, what's the conservative's name? Mike Rogers or whatever it is out in Michigan. She beat him by a half a point because Alyssa Slotkin is a pro our allies in the Middle East, pro, she's a former CIA agent, pro corporate PAC money, pro all of these things. And she snuck by a half a point. And Democrats want to convince you that if she only won by a half a point, a progressive will get obliterated. Not she only won by a half a point, progressives would win by 6, but we'd rather win with the centrist. That way, nothing has to fundamentally change, regardless if the Democrat or Republican wins. And the most recent polling data for Wisconsin now mirrors what is taking place in Michigan and is realistically taking place in a lot of places around this country. Electability as a myth. Lee Snodgrass actually commented on my Facebook post saying, electability means whoever won is the most electable. And I feel like that is the best way that anybody can say that kind of thing. Antonio says the liberals are just as dangerous as MAGA. Neera Tanden is on Twitter, happy that Graham Plattner is out, far more than she said that the woman that got assaulted. That's the kind of people in the establishment. Exactly. And Neera Tanden was working double time to make sure that Andrew Cuomo, after he already lost the Democratic process in the primary, was running as an independent and had a chance to be able to win there. Fergs highlights. Oh, I thought you said ice, but yeah. Electability is a myth, and the most recent polling data highlights that. And yes, Allie, that is her real last name. She is the state assemblywoman for the district that I live in. She was on my show once or twice. And I'll have her on more now. But it's a full-time job, but we'll get there. Carla's a big fan. Fergs has his problems with her. Violet's having fun with it. Yeah, I get that. As a guy with a funny sounding last name, I get it. But yeah, you're not wrong, Antonio. I tend to agree with you on that sentiment there. And I'd argue establishment Dems are even more frustrating because I don't know if you listen to my radio show or not. I'm starting to lose track of who's been here since the radio and who's found me over the course of the last couple weeks through social media apps. But the Democratic Party is extra frustrating. It's like when people say, why are the protests about what our allies in the Middle East is doing to Lebanon and Gaza, why are the protests dampened a little more under Trump than they were under Biden? It's almost like they were fake or cosplaying. And it's that I was alive during the aftermath of September 2001, and like I was brought up in an America where the Republicans were very gung ho about war in the Middle East, and the Democrats were the ones cosplaying as the anti-war leftists. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, so obviously I'm in favor of what the Democratic Party is doing and stands for then because I thought as a child that war was an outdated concept, and I still do in 2026. And it's not naive, it's just realistic. And in wrestling, there are people that like to cheer for the heels, right? Someone shows up, they grab a microphone, and they're like, I've been to a lot of shitty towns in my life, and no place sucks more than Appleton. Like, most people boo, and some people are like, oh, I love this guy. Like, this guy's such an ass, and it's just fun to watch him. And then a lot of people enjoy cheering for the babyface who steps up, and when he says your town sucks, he gives them a rock bottom and moves on. People cheer for that. Politics has taken on the same kind of scenario, and then the Democrats take on the role of the babyface. So when a Democrat doesn't cut taxes for the rich, provides a child tax cut that removes half of the kids out of poverty, then when they see how effective it was, instead of saying let's double it and take 100% of the kids out of poverty, they say let's cut that tax credit and put those kids back in poverty. It feels like the cartoonish attitude of what MAGA and the Republican Party represents with their cuts to SNAP benefits. And so the Democrats, as I oftentimes lament, represent a status quo, and then the Republicans drag us even further away from that status quo. Then the Democrats show up and say, look, there's nothing we can do to bring back the old status quo that you already hated. But what we can do is maintain this new status quo that sucks even worse than the thing that got us voted out last time. But trust us, if you don't vote for us again, it will get worse. And that is kind of how our two-party system works. Then, when a Graham Plattner, Francesca Hong, El Sayed, Zohran Mamdani comes out and says, actually, there's a real left that has ideas and says, not only do we have to maintain this status quo for the people that need it, but there are plenty of ways that we are able to improve that status quo beyond where we are. That is when the uniparty coalesces. And of course, MAGA's more than happy to call them communists because when have they ever thought for themselves? And of course, liberals are willing to call them out on their shit because by and large, a lot of liberals are the elites that MAGAs don't shut up about. People making low to mid six figures that are fairly well off and would rather not see their taxes increase. But they do want to hang a rainbow flag and a Black Lives Matter flag because they do care about other minorities. And by care, I mean hang the flag and literally do nothing else. Take it from somebody who lived in the city, who actually hung out in different diverse communities and like made friends. That was always the running bit, is that like you'd see all the people change their social profiles to a black square to show solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. And all my black friends would be like, Ben, where's your black square? And it was always in a tongue-in-cheek matter because I was always loud about like, every one of those Mother Hubbards would not be partying here right now. They'd be scared to be where I'm hanging out right now. And but they'll put the square up and act like they're doing something. And that's what liberal politics is. You better not, Robin. I saw her say I'll never vote Republican again. I mean, I've been there. We all been there. All right, most of us have been there. So don't worry. But yeah, and Ali says then bam, actually everyone's some shade of racist or sexist. Absolutely. Absolutely. I lean into it at times, especially with one group. I have a friend who started a ladies group that I have so much fun with. And like I love every single one of them and they're advocates of the show and they're fantastic people, but I jerk her around so much. Um Annie B says probably because half of the McMahon family works for Trump. LOL. Well, don't think it's not a coincidence that he absolutely leans into the heel nature of things. That's the liberal tears component of the MAGA movement, right? We're not going to actually make things better, but we'll make things bad in a way that liberals understand is bad, but our supporters will not understand is bad because well, reading is very time consuming. Wisco Girl says the Trump child account website is live as of this morning. I was skeptical about it, but I tried signing up my 2 children this morning and they are ineligible for the 1,000 incentive contribution because they were not born between 25 and 28. I talked about that yesterday. The same population of people that said student loan forgiveness was unfair or affirmative action was unfair or DEI programs were unfair is like, yeah, kids born specifically in this window of time get a benefit and everybody else is left to fend for themselves. And just to be clear, the benefit is $1,000. Like, don't get me wrong, better than nothing, but I'd rather tax the rich and just have universal programs for all children, not just the children born when our dad president is making the rules and fucking up the economy worse every single day. Yes, as CKK says, can he sign up and get a retroactive interest? Exactly. Now we're talking. Like that would actually be something worth talking about. But again, liberals are just as guilty of it. That was always my running bit, right? Like I created a fund to give $3,000 to every person born on a Tuesday to an Inuit mother and a biracial father who now all only has one leg now, and anybody who fits that criteria can get $3,000 to start their business. And like meanwhile, there's millions of people struggling to get by or start their business that could also benefit from those $3,000, and they're told that they're actually privileged and should just be lucky that they were born a certain way. Like you could just do the damn thing for everybody, and that would win. That would win all the time. And people say, oh, it's easy to be a progressive because all you have to do is give other people your money. And this is where boomers tend to struggle with me a little bit. It's how your childhood worked. Like straight up, it's how your childhood worked. And we could do it again. You just have to stop listening to your dad, president. And you have to stop listening to liberals tell you that better things aren't possible. Susan says, that's me, Ben. I'll take the 3K. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, the child accounts are to incentivize pregnancy. I think you're going to see a lot of incentivizing pregnancy programs because nobody's having kids. Not nobody. And I'll admit, if you're listening to me in the Fox Valley, you might be a little skewed in what you think the percentages actually are. I can tell you in the city of Pittsburgh, I was the norm, not the exception. Whereas here, I'm kind of more the exception. Sensei, we'll bring you back on again, but be quick with what you're saying here. I try to limit people to 1 call per show, but what's up?
I just had to say this. To all the boomers out there, do you not recall that FDR was smeared as socialist? How many of you people ended up the middle class because of his quote unquote socialist policies. Do you not recall the communists, the socialists, and trade unions like Eugene Debs fought for our rights as working class people, for the 8-hour workday, for child labor laws, for all these protections, and you smear socialists? You smear the communists? Do you not recall your own history? This is how you people got to the middle class.
It's all good. Hey, I appreciate the passion there, man. And not 10 out of 10, no notes. It's what I say all the time. And that's what used to drive people nuts on my radio show is I would call the boomer generation the biggest welfare generation on the planet. Not to say they didn't work, not to say they didn't earn what they got, but to say that the government was absolutely involved in every step of the way. And then they grew up to tell people our age to not expect the government to bail them out. And I can sense the frustration in your voice. And if you think you're frustrated, try doing AM talk radio. Um, Jake says it costs thousands to deliver a baby in the U.S. with hospital with insurance. That $1,000 is already a net negative before you leave the hospital. Well, Jake, so it is supposed to be viewed as a is the audio down on YouTube? Can someone on TikTok please run on YouTube and see if the audio's down, please? The $1,000 is a savings account that is supposed to compound over time. But again, to your point, Jake, everybody's so broke. Okay, good. Audio's back. We're good. Everybody's so broke that I think more than half of Americans will take the $1,000 out of the savings account and use it to pay a rent bill 1 month. And then in years, they'll be like, well, it's too bad some of the parents didn't have the foresight to understand to save that $1,000. And then meanwhile, you know, they didn't have an option, and it completely ignores, to your point, exactly how expensive child rearing is, the cost of living crisis is. I couldn't imagine the life that I am in right now. And granted, apples to apples and being consistent, I would be eligible for much more unemployment if I had a child and a wife and all that stuff. But all of that notwithstanding, I would be a complete nervous wreck if other people were dependent on me right now in this exact moment to be able to exist. Um and so I get your point. I absolutely get your point, and I think that's worth highlighting. But it would be better if they just made the childbirthing process covered by the government and then allowed the government to negotiate the prices down so that we weren't all paying an arm and a leg for taxes. But who voted against it? I think this is the first time post radio show. Every single Republican in the House and Senate voted against the idea that the government should be able to negotiate medical prices across the board. And we ended up having to settle for 10 drugs. And then MAGA bitches, the cost of living or the cost of medication is so high. Don't call them stupid. Name calling is a very bad thing to do. Let me check my Facebook notifications here, and then we will move on to the next story of the day here. It looks as though comments have all remained in the same kind of place there. Yes. Okay, good. Golden on that front. Just want to make sure I can get people in when I can. But so, while we're on the subject, I'm not ageist. I think I've done a pretty good job of establishing that over the tenure of my career. I do too, Violet. That being said, if there are reports coming out that you are brain dead, literally brain dead, I'm not name calling at this point. And more importantly, nobody can account for where you are. I believe the people are owed an answer. Case in point, Dianne Feinstein very clearly was not herself at the end of her tenure. Her handlers would tell her how to vote wherever she went, and she would go there and she would vote. These are the kind of things that MAGA cling to, while absolutely not caring about doing anything to fix it. They actually just hate trans people and are trying to find any way to get to the make life harder for trans people bucket. But they're right about Dianne Feinstein, and I'm right about Dianne Feinstein. She should have stepped down. She should have been gone long ago. There should have been many more people. I'm looking at the endorsements for Haley Stevens versus El Sayed, and I wish I could take a picture and show you guys right now because Jesus Christ. But she should have stepped down, and there should have been more accountability. We elect these people to represent us, and if you don't know what your name is or what year it is, you've got a problem. Mitch McConnell may not be long for this earth. Now, that assumes, of course, that you actually believe Laura Loomer, which I don't. But there are other reports coming out as well. And more importantly, I keep TV news on and I kind of cycle through as I do my show. I have not seen one Chiron the entire time that I was doing this show asking about where Mitch is. Mitch McConnell, that is, asking about what his condition is. Is he going to come back? Can he vote for anything? What's the game plan here? Because what we're seeing is taxation without representation, if in fact he is not able to represent the people of is it Kansas or Kentucky? Now I'm blanking. I think it's Kansas. Van says, I mean, these old politicians are highlighting the fact that the constituents are very much the problem. In a lot of ways, yes. And Van, I think you're newer, but I'm a big movies guy. The reason these 70 and 8, okay, it's Kentucky. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everybody. The reason these people keep winning elections is the same reason why so much of Hollywood is remakes, reboots, and sequels is bankability is key, and name recognition is key. I would do election coverage for a shitty little radio station I used to work for in 2022, where it was on from 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. And anyone who follows elections knows that's Central Time. We're not going to be able to report on a lot of results. The polls closed, and at 8:02, I could report that Chuck Schumer won re-election in New York. You can report that Nancy Pelosi would win re-election in Frisco. There are certain name recognitions that I think are holding back, and I don't think the same will be true when Schumer runs in 28. But in 2022, he was the first name announced because of his name recognition, not because he stood for something unique or he was that popular or he was so good at what he did. Because of name recognition. Same goes for Mitch McConnell. Same goes for Ted Cruz. These people keep winning because you see a name. What am I going to see? Something called John Carpenter from, or what's this? John Carter from Mars, or like the 8th Batman movie? Well, I'll watch the 8th Batman movie. Then you see John Carter from Mars once on TV. You're like, shit, that was a really fun action movie. I wish I would have went to go see that in theaters, but I had never heard of it before. That's what happens to most politicians. And what you're seeing right now, thank you for the gifts, Canary. What you're seeing right now is the birth of the no-name independent movie candidate being able to build a following on socials and actually challenge these people that never receive a challenge. And the people that claim to be against the duopoly and against the same old, when a new candidate comes around, you go, but that's socialism, and vote for the duopoly. The same duopoly that you claim is holding you back. So we are the creators of our own problem. You're absolutely right, Moondog. We build our own status quo that we then say that we hate. And as George Carlin famously said, the government is supposed to be representative of the people, and it absolutely is. And I think that's one of the hardest things for us to reconcile with. Yeah, and as Susan says, this chick, Laura Loomer, is the exact source who triggered the brain dead report. Exactly, which is why I said take it with a grain of salt. I don't remember who it was, but someone said, yeah, Laura Loomer's reporting it, so that means I instinctively believe the opposite, which is my line about Elon Musk. But it also works for Laura Loomer as well. So it's no guarantee he could be back. But again, when his family says, we would appreciate privacy in these trying times, nah, you know what? I'd appreciate privacy when I'm getting fired. When you're a public person, it's not how it works. So you come clean, you tell people what everybody's going through. And if you're not going to tell people, then the Laura Loomers of the world get to set the narrative. That's not anyone's fault other than his family, his handlers, and the Republican Party. Now it's up to the internet and the Elon Musk Twitter fiends to be able to create the narrative because they don't want to put one out there. You're a public facing figure. Your luxury of privacy in trying times was forfeit long ago. Remember that. KG says, add this to the list of reforms for Congress. No member is allowed to just disappear. If there's a medical issue, the public has a right to know. Exactly. There is no, you keep it secret. In your life, yes, absolutely. If I had some ailment that I didn't want you guys to know about, I'm not telling you. But I'm also not elected to represent you guys. There's people out there are. Mitch McConnell is. And while I'd argue he hasn't represented his constituents in a very long time, it's his job. Alex says George Carlin said it's also called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. Absolutely on that front, especially in 2026. I mean, I said that to Malia, who's going to be a regular guest on this show starting Thursday. Had October 2023 happened in the Middle East back in 1993, not only would none of us care 2 days later, but 90% plus of us would have taken our allies' side because the American dream was more achievable and information was less accessible. In this era where nobody sees access to a house and they see egregious inequality around the world, nobody's got any gripes about making that their cause because what are they afraid of losing anymore? Whereas in the 90s, people actually had shit they were afraid to lose. Thank you very much, Nataki, for all the gifts. I appreciate all the support on TikTok today. You guys are always fantastic. And to everybody here as well. You guys are great. Man, but just kind of wild to watch this Mitch McConnell stuff play out the way that it has and see the family say, can we have a little privacy right now? No, you can't. And I'm not trying to be insensitive, and this ain't because I don't like Mitch, which I don't. It's because it's the game that you signed up to play. Susan Collins tried to play the same thing. Ken Klippenstein, very popular leftist independent journalist. I source him all the time on this show. He was asking the question, what is that shake that Susan Collins has? And she almost begrudgingly, after thousands of people started retweeting the story, came out and said, here's the ailment that I have. I don't like talking about it. I wish people could give me my privacy. You're a public figure. No, like, that's not how it works. You are meant to represent people. And if you might not be in a position to be able to do so, then you need to announce it. Van says he's excited for her to lose her seat. I don't think so, man. You'll have to go back and listen to the first hour of this show on the YouTube. I'm not optimistic anymore. Hal says probably the power and prestige, maybe the money too. Oh, about clinging to relevance. Yeah, absolutely. There's, I'm sure, a fear of being left behind, of forgotten. Oh, wow. Thank you. Volume's up from when I had guests still. Thank you very much for turning me into a cowboy there on TikTok. But yeah, I'm sure there's a layer of fear to that and why they don't let go. But then to the Moondog's point on TikTok, then it's on the voters to stop allowing the same candidates to keep winning. This ain't rocket science here, guys. We're voting for these people. We're putting these people in the position to be able to screw us over. And then we get mad when they screw us over. And then when an outsider shows up, and I'm not speaking about Graham here, unfortunately, anymore. We when outsiders show up, as Baba would always highlight, they're oftentimes ostracized as the least electable candidates. But I agree. And I do agree with you. He says he believes the scandal's coming from inside the Dems. I believe that as well, but I also believe the scandal. But I think the Dems put it out there to tank him because he isn't going to put money into our allies. But God forbid you say that, you will get labeled as anti Semitic. Absolutely wild. Who was endorsed by Schumer, Ali? But so in any event, that's essentially my thoughts on matters for today. As I kind of highlighted, I got a little bit of plugging here to do at the end, but I'll be on the office hours Substack, on the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack from 1 to 1:30 today, talking about my article. That is for paid subscribers only, so please consider doing so. I have a YouTube page. We just cracked 600 subscribers yesterday evening. Now we're on to 700. As I said at the beginning of the show, there's a certain tiny little YouTube account that has 733 followers that I would just love to pass up. So if you guys haven't already, oh, YT, the Tube of You. Thank you, Violet. Hit me up on the Tube of You. Throw me a subscribe. If you're new on TikTok, we have a lot more people here than we normally do. Please follow this account. Every follower helps me as I'm trying to build an independent operation here. And then I have a link tree. That link tree is available in my bio on my Tuba U page as well as my Facebook page. It's very easy to find. It takes you to every social account that I own and allows you to follow me right there. And it's connected to my Venmo. I still need to connect it to a Cash App and a PayPal because some of you said that's how you operate, and I will get it up and I will let you know. A bunch of you guys have taken to throwing a couple bucks my way to help me kind of get through this rough transition process, and I absolutely appreciate you all for it. And I'm going to keep asking as we continue along. No potatoes in the morning show, Nataki, but we'll get there. But nevertheless, if you guys find yourself in a position to be able to help financially, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you can't, just a free subscribe or a free follow would sure help a lot. Just search my name on any bar, and my stuff will pop up. I appreciate all of the support and that so many of you guys are still continuing to show up and dive into this show with me here every single day, 9 to 11. Ben After Dark. 7 p.m. today. I'm going to be riding by my lonesome. I oftentimes will be taking interactions from people, and I swear to God, I don't have any appointments with anybody. I just have the office hours from 1 to 1:30, so I'm going to take the rest of the time. I'm going to get something to eat after this, and then we're going to get this shit up and running so that I can connect everything, and then all of you can see and hear one another all the time when you're commenting, and we're going to make it happen. So thank you very much, guys. And Jake, I appreciate that. He says, glad you're still in the area. Love getting my day going with you. That means a lot to me, man. And I'm glad that you take the time to spend with me and all of us as well, as this community has only really grown. I think the best part about all this is how many of you all have become friends. I can tell Susan from California is making friends with locals here in Wisconsin. My entire TikTok chat has created a group channel where we're straight up mean to each other at this point because that's how close we're all becoming. And I thank you for the gifts there again. I can't believe you guys are doing that. Thank you so much as we move along here. You're all wonderful. We're going to keep it moving. Again, office hours 1 to 1:30, Ben After Dark, 7 to 8 Central Time. And then we'll be back with Outside the Box Unfiltered tomorrow, same time, 9 to 11, every single day, Monday through Friday. Thank you for being here. Everybody have a lovely Tuesday afternoon.